In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the exhaust manifolds on this Ram 2500 with a 6.4 liter Hemi. We're working on the passenger side, but on the driver's side, the process will be exactly the same. Let's get started. Let's remove the wheel. Use a 21mm socket, remove all 8 lug nuts, and then pull the wheel off. To access the exhaust manifold, we'll have to take off the fender liner. There are several 8mm headed screws that hold it on the fender, and then 2 right in the center. Take them all out. Now to remove the fender liner, push it inward, down, and then out. The top bolt of the exhaust manifold to pipe we can get through the back of the fender well. 15mm in size. Mine is very rusted, so I'm actually going to use a 14mm. I sprayed it with rust penetrant. And there isn't a whole lot of room to swing a ratchet, but I'm just going to take it one click at a time and hopefully it breaks free. Looks like it's spinning, but it's spinning the entire nut and bracket assembly with the bolt, which is a huge step because a lot of times these just snap right off and break, but I'm just going to continue spinning it until this bottoms out and I can spin just the bolt without the mounting nut. So that's spinning the nut inside this cage, and it's twisting it. So I'm going to stop, and I'm going to try to apply some heat to this. Hopefully that breaks it free. I have an induction heater that's going to apply heat without an open flame, which is ideal. You have a lot of sensitive things up close, including the valve cover and the valve cover gasket. So if you're going to apply heat, be very careful of how you're doing that. Of course, you could also just cut the bolt, but I'm going to try to remove it the regular way first. Put some pressure on it. Nope, that just broke that cage. So what I'm going to do now is try to completely break that off so I can at least hold that mounting nut with some pliers or even a wrench. All right, a 14mm wrench fits, so I'm going to try and break this free like that. I'm going to try heating it one last time. If that doesn't work, I'm going to have to just cut it. Oh, it worked. All right, take that out. Now let's go underneath and do the bottom one. From underneath you can see the other one. We'll do the exact same thing and hopefully we have the same success. Only difference on this one is I'm going to try an impact to hopefully speed up the process. This is pretty much what I expected. We'll do the same thing. Open up this bracket. I'm going to apply some heat to this one too before I put the wrench on there. Bolt is very hot, so I'm going to take it out with some pliers. Now if you grab the pipe, it should separate from the manifold. I'm gonna have to unbolt this shield. There are two 10mm nuts on this side and then two more on the back side. One of mine on the back is broken, so I only have the top one. I'll show you where the bottom one is, but for now, let's get these two off. Okay, well, that's gonna happen. All right, this shield is loose on this side now. Let's move to the other side. All right, here's the other side. Once again, 10mm socket, remove the mounting nut. This one might break. Or twist the whole shield. Oh, it's actually pulling the whole stud out. The entire stud from the manifold. Okay, that's fine. Here's a view of what's happening. You can see the entire stud is spinning, and honestly, I'll take it because it's got to come out anyway. And if it's coming out this easy, just from this 10mm nut, that's fine, we'll go with it. The other bolt would be right down here, or the mounting nut on the stud, the fourth one for this shield. Right down there. Once again, mine's missing, so the entire shield can move around now. Now I'm just going to try to get this out of here. This shield is trash anyway, so I'm just going to bend it straight, try to extract it from where it's sitting. All right, there's that. And this exposes all of our hardware for the manifold. Here's the view from underneath, and we're gonna tackle those mounting bolts and studs first. I'm actually gonna go from up and over the frame, but you can see what's happening underneath. I'll start with this one right here, which is a 10mm bolt. That right there is a stud, and that's a 13mm. This one would have had that mounting nut for the shield attached to it. Then there's another 10 over there. And finally, that last one, another 13mm stud, which we can actually see from the front side. Once again, starting with this 10mm bolt here. All right, this one broke free pretty easily, so that's good. Next is this 13mm stud. Just going to work this back and forth. There we go. Get that rust penetrant worked into the threads. Spray it some more if needed. But if you can avoid breaking this, that'd be great. All right, looks like it's coming out. Make sure you don't get your tool jammed between the frame and the bolt. Being able to go from over the frame and under the frame is key here. Swapping back and forth. That way you can reach all angles. There's that one. Let's move on to that next 10mm headed bolt right over there. There we go. All right, there's that. Let's move to that last one that you see in the front. Once again, we can get that one from the other side. We're back in the front area of the manifold. Let's take that last 13mm stud out. I'm going to put this 10mm mounting nut back on, the one that was holding the shield. And if I bottom this out up against the stud, hopefully this will give me enough holding power to remove that stud with a shallow socket, because I can't fit a wrench, I can't fit a 3/8 socket in here, and my 1/4 inch deep socket will hit the frame before I can get that bolt out. So this is gonna be my only option for now. Aha, it's spinning the whole stud. Perfect, exactly what I wanted. At this point, this is loose enough for me to remove by hand. Okay, of course I have to separate these, but at least that's out. Now we have this one over here, a 10 millimeter, a 13 right here, and the 3 top 10 millimeter bolts. And that's it, the manifold can come right out. So let's get all those. I'm going to break them all free and then put my air ratchet on them to speed up the process. These lines are going to be in your way, but you should be able to pull them a little bit. And now we can remove the manifold. Careful of any wires or lines that are here so that you don't damage them. All right, remove the old gasket and discard it. You don't want to reuse these. We do have quite a bit of cleanup to do here. So let's get to cleaning up, and you always want to inspect all the threads. You want to inspect the head mounting surface, make sure it doesn't look like it's severely corroded. Of course, we had an exhaust leak back there. That's what the black soot is, and clearly needed a new gasket. From the looks of this one, it was completely blown. And at this point, like I said, all I have to do is do some cleaning and we'll get to reinstalling. It's time to clean everything up. I already inspected the threads. Everything looks good. So I'm going to take a sanding block with a piece of fine grit sandpaper, and I'm going to clean the surface here. If you don't have a sanding block, don't use anything that will gouge the aluminum head or make it uneven. Then the gasket won't seal, you'll have an exhaust leak, and that's gonna be a huge problem if this surface is uneven. So you're better off using a razor blade to scrape the corrosion, or maybe a piece of wood that you know is flat. Just try to keep the surface as perfectly even as possible. Spray it down, wipe it off, inspect, and that should be good to go. All right, let's rinse it all off with some brake parts cleaner. Blow it off with compressed air if you have access to it. It's important to clean up the exhaust pipe right here. There's no gasket, and I recommend taking a wire wheel on anything that'll fit in here. If you can fit a drill, go ahead. If not, just take some sandpaper and just clean up this mating surface on the lip. If it's very corroded, rusted, it's not going to seal up, and obviously it's easiest to clean it right now. I'm just going to use a die grinder, use a worn out, very fine grit sanding disc, clean all this up. Now let's bring the gasket in. I know it's not going to stay, but it's going to be here ready to go once the manifold is in, which is the next step. Careful of any wires and lines, hoses, anything like that that might get damaged. Drop this down. We'll have to twist the gasket up now. All right, once you find the right angle, it's gonna just drop right in. Now, I don't have any hardware ready, but at this point, I know it's gonna line up, so let's get some hardware, start it in. It really doesn't matter which bolt you start first, as long as you start something that's gonna hold it on. just going to start with this one over here because it's easiest to reach and it mostly lines up. Start it in as far as you can by hand. This will hold it, and then we'll try to start one on the other end. That way it stays lined up for the most part. On the other end, I'm going to put in the last bolt, the leftmost bolt as I'm looking at it. And this is going to be the stud with the little threads for the mounting nut for the shield. Make sure you put that in the right hole, otherwise you'll have to swap it out later. Once we get this one in and started, our manifolds should line up on all of the bolts, and it'll be a lot easier to get them started. Everything's going in smoothly so far. Now I'm not going to tighten anything until all of the bolts are in. I'm going to leave this loose on purpose because it will need to move a little bit back and forth. I'm going to start the top bolts, and of course we'll move underneath and start the bottom ones. Underneath, let's install the one that has a stud. Well, mine's broken, but it should have a stud on the very back cylinder on the bottom. And the other ones are just regular bolts. All right, last one from underneath. And there it goes. Here on the screen, you'll see the sequence for torquing this manifold and of course tightening it to begin with. You basically start at the lower left center bolt and then go in a clockwise spiral motion until you get all of them. So having said that, I'm gonna get my air ratchet just to bottom everything out. Once they're snug, the first pass will be 12 foot-pounds, second pass 18 foot-pounds, and the third pass 18 foot-pounds again to make sure that everything is seated. This one here is probably going to be the hardest one just because of the space limitations. All right, they're all tight. So now let's do the first pass at 12 foot-pounds. Of course, it's gonna be very difficult to get a torque wrench in here, so I'm gonna try my best on all of them. If I can't get the torque wrench to fit, I'm just gonna have to do my best with a ratchet and make them nice and snug. If you just snug them up about 1/8 of a turn after they bottom out so that gasket can squish a little bit, that's plenty tight. First pass at 12 foot-pounds, here we go. All right, that's all of them at 12 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna go around one more time and do 18 foot-pounds this time. At this point, they're all tight to 18 foot-pounds, and it is actually recommended that you go around one more time to double check all of them at 18 foot-pounds in the same sequence. So I'm gonna do that, but I'm not gonna show it because it's the same exact thing. It's time to put the shield in. I'm gonna slide it in from the side and try my best to bend it the least amount possible. I might have to a little bit, but the less I bend it to fit it, the less I have to correct it after. That one's lined up. If this one wasn't broken, that stud, then I would be able to secure it at this point. So in order to somewhat secure it, so I can line up the two tops, I'm going to put this mounting nut on and tighten it up all the way. At this point, I just have to bend it in position, basically. All right, so that one's tight. Now I get the top and basically bend it into position, because I had to bend it out of shape to get it in. This one's lined up, so I'm going to start the mounting nut, but I won't tighten it just yet. I just don't want this corner falling off as I put on the other one. All right, I got the other one to fit, so I'm going to start the mounting nut on. All right, they're all started. I'm going to snug them all up. I'm going to double check them by hand. These don't need to be that tight. A quick snug after they bottom out is plenty. Yeah, that one's tight. I already know that one's tight. Check this one. Yep. You want to make sure that this doesn't rattle, which it does because it's touching the shield on the gasket. So I'm just going to take a pry bar, bend these apart. No more rattles, perfect. Now let's put in the bolts that connect the pipe to the manifold. The bolts provided with the manifold should be a 17mm head on the bolt with a 14mm mounting nut on the other side. These are pretty tight at this point. The pipe is sealed up. If you see any leaks here, you will have to remove these two bolts and either clean some more or install some gasket maker that is made particularly for exhaust systems, because most likely the surface is pitted and is letting exhaust gases escape. At this point, our repair here is done, so let's put the fender liner back on. Push it in, up, and then back out to hook it over the fender. Install the 8mm screws that you removed, some along the fender and 2 in the center.
Install all 8 lug nuts, bottom them out in a cross pattern, and also in a cross pattern we're going to torque these front wheels to 135 foot-pounds. Once again, 135 foot-pounds in a cross pattern.
Double check it. Now run the truck, make sure there are no exhaust leaks, and there you have it, job is done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.